Welcome to the Stoic Tide. Have you ever looked around and wondered why some people seem to attract abundance effortlessly, while others struggle their whole lives for scraps? They call it luck, timing, even fate, but deep down you know it's something else. You've felt that quiet pull before, that sense that your outer world somehow mirrors your inner one. You've worked hard, yet something invisible keeps slipping through your fingers. It's not that you lack opportunity. It's that your mind has not yet been trained to receive it. Wealth isn't just numbers or possessions. It's a reflection of order within chaos, a state of mind that turns limitation into leverage. The Stoics understood this long before modern men called it mindset. They knew that fortune doesn't favor the desperate or the distracted. It favors the disciplined, the mind that stays steady when others chase noise, the heart that remains grateful even in scarcity, the eyes that see value where others see loss. You've heard it before. Thoughts become things. But in Stoic truth, thoughts become actions, and actions shape reality. To attract wealth is not to wish for it, but to become the kind of person who commands it naturally. The one who acts with clarity, patience, and restraint while the world burns with haste. So the real question is not how do I make more? It's how do I become more? Stay with me because in the next moments we'll explore how to train your mind not to chase wealth, but to draw it in like gravity. Quietly, intentionally, powerfully. As we step into the first chapter, imagine standing before an untouched field at dawn. The air is still, the world is waiting. In your hands, nothing but a seed. In your mind, a vision only you can see. That seed is thought, the beginning of every fortune that has ever existed. And the soil is your mind. If you tend to it with clarity and conviction, something extraordinary will grow. But if you let fear and doubt take root, nothing will ever bloom. Wealth doesn't answer prayers. It responds to order, to discipline, to those who have trained their minds to command it. The Stoics knew this long before the world worshipped success. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And in that strength lies fortune. Because wealth is not a chase, it's a consequence. It is drawn to those who master themselves before trying to master the world." Picture this. Most people wake up already overwhelmed. Their minds are crowded with noise, running from one worry to the next. They call it ambition, but it's chaos. The Stoics would call it slavery, not to another man, but to one's own thoughts. They drift from task to task, craving results without ever training the instrument that creates them, the mind. So they grind, hustle, repeat. Yet nothing changes because they've never learned to command the source of all power, their own attention. Wealth begins there, not in strategy, not in luck, in focus, in the quiet ability to hold one thought long enough for it to take form. Andrew Carnegie once believed steel would shape the future. Edison believed light could replace darkness. Henry Ford believed machines could serve mankind. Their riches were not accidents. They were outcomes of disciplined belief, of minds forged in clarity and immune to noise. Seneca wrote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. The untrained call it luck. The Stoic calls it cause and effect. When your inner world is ordered, the outer world bends toward it. But when your thoughts are scattered, even opportunity becomes invisible. Most people wait for the world to change while their minds remain untrained. That's like asking a mirror to smile before you do. Let's bring it closer. I once knew a craftsman who lived simply yet carried the calm of a king. He said, "My wealth is the order of my thoughts." He had little by the world's measure, yet lacked nothing. His peace was unshakable. That's the essence of Stoic fortune. To be rich without excess, powerful without noise, and fulfilled without possession. Because when your mind is disciplined, you stop reaching for things that do not serve you. And wealth, real wealth, begins to flow toward you naturally. So how do you train it? Begin by reclaiming silence. Wealth is born in stillness, in the moments when you turn away from distractions and listen to reason. Thought becomes your craft. Discipline becomes your shield. You think not casually but deliberately. You move not out of fear but out of purpose. Each action sharpens you each day. You hold your mind steady. You move closer to mastery. The Stoics believed the greatest empire is the empire within. To rule it is to rule everything else, because once you can command your thoughts, no failure can break you and no success can intoxicate you. You stand firm, calm, clear, and ready. That is the soil in which fortune grows. The man who holds his mind in order holds the world in balance. Remember this. Wealth is not something you find. It's something you become. It flows toward clarity, toward strength, toward purpose. The undisciplined may chase riches, but they'll always feel poor. The disciplined need nothing, and for that reason everything begins to come to them. This is where your journey begins. Not in the market, not in luck, but in mastery. When you stop begging life to change and start building yourself into someone it cannot ignore. Train your mind to obey your vision, to rise above noise, to act with reason, and to hold faith that does not bend. Because the mind you command today will create the fortune you live tomorrow. Moving into the second chapter, picture your mind as a sacred temple standing atop a hill at sunrise. The world below is already stirring. Noise rising, distractions forming, storms gathering. Yet inside that temple there is silence. That silence is power. And your first duty each day is to protect it. Because everything that enters the mind eventually shapes the life that follows. Every word, every thought, every whisper, they are seeds. Some grow into gardens, others into weeds. The Stoics understood this long before modern men began to speak of mindset. Epictetus said, "Control what you can and you will find freedom." What he meant was simple. Guard the gates of your attention. Be ruthless in what you allow to dwell within you. If you feed your mind gossip, fear, or scarcity, your spirit will grow weak and restless. But if you fill it with discipline, clarity, and purpose, your actions will mirror that strength. You become what you allow to remain in your thoughts. Now imagine a king standing before his castle gate. Outside a crowd clamors, merchants, thieves, wanderers, all demanding to be let in. The wise king does not open the gate to everyone. He decides who may enter. He guards what he values. You must do the same with your mind. Each thought you allow inside will influence your kingdom, your peace, your choices, your fate. Most people surrender this power without even realizing it. They let the world write their story before they've written the first line themselves. So you begin by reclaiming your authorship. You wake before the world begins to shout. You claim the silence before chaos does. You sit with your thoughts as a Stoic would, not to escape, but to understand. You ask yourself, what kind of life am I building today? And you decide consciously what to allow inside your temple. Not the latest outrage, not yesterday's mistakes. Only the truth that strengthens you, the vision that pulls you forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote every morning to align his mind with reason before the day began. He didn't wait for peace to find him. He created it. That is your practice to meet each dawn as a builder meets his blueprint. Deliberate, measured, intentional. You design your day as an architect designs a monument. Not carelessly. Not based on mood, but with structure and purpose. Because every hour you live without intention is an hour written by someone else's hand. The wealthy, the wise, the truly grounded, they think differently. They see the world not as it is, but as it could be. When others ask, "Can I afford this?" they ask, "And how can I create it?" When others see problems, they see patterns, puzzles waiting for patience and will to solve them. They don't fear failure, they study it. To them, failure is not defeat. It is data, direction, refinement. The Stoic doesn't collapse under loss. He learns its geometry and adjusts his aim. There's a story of a craftsman who built instruments for kings. One day his apprentice broke a half-finished lute, splitting the wood beyond repair. The boy panicked, but the master only smiled and said, "Good. Now you know the sound of weakness." He took the broken piece, studied it, and carved a stronger frame. The next instrument sang clearer than any before. That's the Stoic mind. It doesn't run from failure. It listens to it until wisdom appears in the echoes. So guard your mind like that craftsman guards his tools. Do not let it be dulled by complaint or corroded by comparison. Choose the materials of your inner life as carefully as he chose his wood. Each belief, each habit, each word you repeat is part of what you're building. Wealth, peace, mastery, they all begin with the same act. Selection, what will you let in? What will you reject? Every answer shapes the structure you call destiny. Seneca said, "Associate with those who make you better." That includes your thoughts. Let no idea live rentry in your head unless it strengthens your soul. The Stoic mind is not empty. It is curated. It knows that every distraction has a cost, every indulgence a consequence. Guard your focus as you would guard your freedom. Because once your mind is conquered, the world no longer needs chains. At this stage, understand this truth. Your life follows your dominant thought. If your mind is scattered, your days will mirror that disorder. But when your mind is disciplined, your reality begins to bend toward precision. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop wishing and start building. So rise early, sit in silence. Decide what will enter your temple today. Because what you let in will soon become who you are. And from this point forward, let every thought you entertain serve one purpose: to build the life your reason approves of, and your spirit can stand proud within. Advancing to the third chapter. Imagine the quiet moment before dawn. The sky still dark, the air sharp and still. While the world sleeps, you rise. Not because it's easy, but because you've made a pact with yourself. Each morning is a ceremony not of coffee and routine, but of command. You don't wake to react. You wake to create. You train your mind before the world trains it for you. This is where the Stoics and the great builders of wealth share common ground. Both understood that clarity is not inherited. It is forged daily. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." So each morning you choose your color, not the gray of hesitation, not the pale shade of wishful thinking, but the deep, unmoving tone of purpose. You speak to yourself not in hopes, but in certainties. Not "I hope I can, but I will." Not someday, but today. That single shift from wishing to deciding is the point where fate begins to bend in your direction. The wealth you seek isn't waiting in the marketplace. It waits in your discipline. Every decision you make in silence is a brick laid in the structure of your future. When you rise early, when you focus while others drift, when you act when no one's watching, you build unseen equity in yourself. The Stoics taught that repetition is the mother of mastery. What you do consistently, you become permanently. Discipline is not punishment. It is the sculptor's chisel, sharp, patient, merciless to weakness, but devoted to form. Now imagine two men facing the same storm. One curses it, runs for shelter, and waits for the sky to clear. The other adjusts his stance, tightens his grip, and keeps walking. The first man prays for calm. The second becomes calm. That's the difference between the untrained and the trained mind. One endures life, the other commands it. Life will test both. It always does. The wind will rise. The world will doubt you. People will question your motives, your pace, your dreams. And when failure visits, because it will try to break your rhythm. But if your mind is forged daily, nothing can break you. You've already met resistance before the world ever tried to give it to you. Seneca once wrote, Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor strengthens the body." He understood that suffering is not the enemy. It's the gymnasium of the soul. You cannot grow by avoiding storms. You grow by weathering them with dignity. So when life throws its weight against you, remember you're not being punished. You're being shaped. The more you endure, the more you earn the right to stand unshaken. And when that happens, wealth begins to find you, not because of luck, but because you've become a vessel worthy of holding it. You see, the world often glorifies the glitter, the cars, the mansions, the trophies. But those are fruits, not roots. The real roots grow in darkness, watered by discipline and nourished by silence. Every great achievement begins in the unseen hours. In the early mornings where no one applauds you. In the long nights when you build quietly while others sleep. That's where true power gathers. The Stoics didn't chase praise. They chased progress. They knew that virtue in private becomes victory in public. There's a craftsman I once knew. A man who carved wood for decades without ever seeking fame. His hands were rough, his shop small, but every morning before sunrise he'd polish his tools and whisper, "Today I shape something that will outlast me." That was his wealth, his art, his rhythm. And years later his work hung in halls where kings once dined, not because he aimed for gold, but because he aimed for excellence. He tuned his life to the frequency of mastery, the same frequency where wealth, peace, and fulfillment all meet. Wealth is not a number. It's a frequency, a rhythm your mind must learn to hold. You're either tuned to prosperity or to poverty. The untrained mind transmits fear, scarcity, and distraction. The trained one broadcasts clarity, strength, and faith. Every morning you decide which signal you'll send. Every thought you repeat is a message to the universe. This is who I am becoming. And when that message is steady enough, the world begins to answer back. At this stage, remember, success is not a moment. It's momentum. It's a pulse, a quiet rhythm you keep when others stop. So guard your mornings, protect your routine, show up when it's inconvenient. Because in those silent repetitions, in those disciplined choices made while no one is watching, the invisible becomes inevitable. Train your mind until faith becomes fact, until effort becomes instinct, until wealth no longer feels like pursuit but like gravity. Something that naturally moves toward who you've become. That is the Stoic secret. Wealth doesn't belong to those who wish for it. It belongs to those who have built themselves into its equal. Now imagine standing in a room filled with echoes of the word can't. It bounces off every wall, wraps itself around every dream, and convinces you that life is limited. That's how scarcity begins, not in the wallet, but in the mind. It spreads quietly through phrases we whisper without thought. That's too much. People like me don't get that. Maybe one day. Every time you repeat them, you tighten the chains around your own potential. The Stoics would call this a false judgment, a distortion of truth. Because the truth is simple. Limitation exists only where belief surrenders. Epictetus once said, "It's not things that disturb us but our view of them." Scarcity is exactly that, a distorted view. It convinces you that there isn't enough when in fact the world overflows with possibility. Abundance begins as a whisper, a quiet voice that says, "There is more. There is enough. There is a way." The question is whether you can hear it beneath the noise of doubt. Picture this. A craftsman in the dark working by candlelight. Every strike of his hammer fails to produce what he envisions. Yet he doesn't curse the metal. He adjusts his grip. He learns, he keeps going. That's what Thomas Edison did. 10,000 attempts to create light. Was he foolish? No, he was faithful. Each so-called failure wasn't a wall. It was a step. A single line of data leading him closer to mastery. That is the Stoic mind, not attached to outcomes but committed to process. The disciplined mind does not say "I failed." It says "I advanced." Seneca taught that fortune tests those it wishes to strengthen. If that's true, then every obstacle you meet is a quiet form of trust. The universe proving your capacity to endure. Abundance isn't given to the hopeful. It's entrusted to the prepared. Those who see beyond lack, who keep building while others complain, eventually find themselves surrounded by the very things they once imagined. Think of Walt Disney. Fired for lacking imagination, rejected by investors, mocked for dreaming too big. Yet long before the world ever saw his castle rise, he saw it clearly. Every brick, every light, every sound, he built it first in the silence of his mind, brick by invisible brick. The Stoics would have admired that because what Disney practiced was not fantasy. It was visualization governed by discipline. He held his vision until reality bowed to it. That's how the mind of wealth operates. It doesn't beg, it builds. It doesn't wish, it works. It doesn't say "I can't," it asks "How can I?" Abundance is not magic. It's a consequence of trained perception. The same world that appears empty to one man overflows for another. The difference lies in what each chooses to focus on. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What's not by wishing for more, but by realizing how much lies within reach when the mind stops bowing to fear. Let me tell you this plainly. Every empire, every innovation, every act of greatness began in a mind that refused to think small. The ancient philosophers called it eudaimonia, the flourishing of the soul aligned with reason. That's abundance at its purest form. To flourish not just in wealth but in clarity and peace and mastery. The wealth you hold in your hands will fade. The wealth you hold in your mind will multiply forever. Now step back and look at your own life. Where have you accepted scarcity? Where have you spoken limits into existence? Retrain your thoughts. Replace "I can't" with "I'm learning." Replace "I wish" with "I'm becoming." Because every time you affirm possibility, you pull yourself closer to it. Every time you act with faith instead of fear, you prove the Stoics right. That fortune favors the disciplined, not the desperate. At this stage, understand this. Abundance isn't something you chase. It's something you embody. It's the calm assurance that there will always be enough. Time, strength, opportunity for the one who walks with reason. The world may glitter with illusions of wealth, but true prosperity begins where scarcity ends in the quiet decision to believe there is always a way forward. At this stage, picture yourself standing before an unfinished masterpiece, a blank canvas, silent, waiting. The brush is in your hand. The colors are in your mind. Before the world ever sees it, you must see it first. Because every empire, every invention, every fortune began as an image no one else could see. The Stoics understood this truth. Everything created twice, once in the mind and once in the world. So before you build with your hands, you must build with your vision. You must make that vision so vivid that when the world calls you delusional, you smile because you've already walked its streets in your mind. You've already felt its weight in your chest. This isn't fantasy. It's discipline. Mental discipline, Stoic discipline. To hold an image steady through chaos requires strength greater than muscle. It demands alignment between thought, emotion, and action. When all three move as one, reality has no choice but to bend. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." That is the foundation of creation. You do not attract wealth by begging for it. You draw it by becoming undeniable, so disciplined, so precise, so aligned with your purpose that the universe must respond. It's not luck, it's law. Just as gravity pulls all things toward the earth, clarity pulls all things toward you. Clarity is the beginning of power. Until you define what you want, your mind will scatter like dust in the wind. The man who knows what he wants and believes he will have it already holds a strength the world cannot understand. Most wander through life saying, I want to be successful, yet cannot describe what success looks like. That's not ambition. That's confusion. The Stoics would tell you, the archer who aims at nothing hits nothing. You must define the target with precision, not I want to be rich. That's noise. Ask yourself how much. Doing what? Living where? Waking to what kind of day? You must see it until you can almost touch it. Write it, speak it, repeat it until your mind begins to confuse vision with memory. Because once your subconscious accepts it as real, your actions will follow naturally. The Stoics trained their minds this way, to premeditate purpose, to imagine virtue so vividly that action became inevitable. Think of Marcus Aurelius not as an emperor on a throne, but as a man at his desk writing to himself by candlelight. Each night he reminded his mind who he intended to be, calm under pressure, just in leadership, unmoved by praise or criticism. He was not fantasizing, he was programming his nature. His vision shaped his reign, not the other way around. That is what the wealthy understand. You act from your vision, not from your circumstances. You move from identity, not reaction. There was once a builder who designed a cathedral that would take 100 years to complete, a lifetime he would never see finished. When asked why he still built it, he replied, "Because in my mind it already stands." That is what it means to live by vision. To see beyond your years, to construct something eternal from the blueprint within you. That is how wealth, legacy, and purpose are forged. Seneca said, "To the one who knows where he sails, no wind is unfavorable. The winds will come, setbacks, critics, doubts, but if your direction is clear, you will use even the storm to move forward. You will no longer depend on motivation. You will be carried by conviction." The man without clarity reacts to life. The man with vision directs it. So ask yourself now, is your vision sharp enough to paint? Can you describe your future as clearly as you describe your past? Until you can, you are walking blindfolded. Clarity turns chaos into direction. It gives your days order, your work meaning, and your failures purpose. You don't wait for the bank account to rise before you think like a leader. You think like one now. You don't wait to be seen as valuable. You act with value until it's undeniable. Because wealth doesn't change who you are, it amplifies it. At this stage, remember this truth. The world doesn't reward wishes. It rewards precision. When your vision is sharp, your actions align. When your actions align, your results compound. And when your results compound, reality has no choice but to follow the blueprint you've already built within. So build it, see it, live it in your mind until it's too real to be denied. Because wealth doesn't begin with money. It begins with mastery, the mastery of thought, the mastery of direction, the mastery of self. And when those three unite, the future is already yours. From here, imagine a craftsman sharpening his tools before dawn. The sound of steel against stone echoes through the quiet air. He knows one truth. Dull tools cannot create precision. The same is true for the mind. You cannot carve greatness from a mind that has settled for less. To create a life of wealth and depth, you must first raise your standards. Refuse to speak as if you are powerless. Refuse to think in limits. Refuse to linger among those who drain your strength with small thoughts. Seneca warned, "Associate with those who make you better." He understood that environment is not decoration, it is direction. The people around you are architects of your fate. Spend your time with those who think small, and your mind will shrink to fit their comfort. But place yourself among those who demand more, who live with clarity and courage, and your spirit will expand to match them. Your surroundings are not neutral. They feed your subconscious. They whisper when you're not listening. The conversations you allow, the energy you absorb, the standards you tolerate, they shape you silently. If your world is filled with scarcity, you will mirror it. But if you surround yourself with builders, thinkers, visionaries, your inner world begins to rise. Because the mind becomes what it repeatedly encounters. Think of your thoughts as seeds. Each day you water them with emotion, feed them with focus, and grow them through repetition. The question is, what are you planting? Doubt or discipline, fear or faith? Every harvest is honest. It reveals what you've nurtured in silence. Plant the seeds of wealth. Plant the thought that says, "I am capable. I am building something that will outlive me." Then rise and work like it's already yours. But the real work begins where most never look, in the mind. Physical effort without mental renewal is like rowing with one oar. You move, but you never progress. Many set goals but never rewrite the beliefs that sabotage them. They chase wealth while clinging to the thinking that created lack. You cannot outwork a mind still wired for scarcity. The Stoics would call this inner rewiring exam mentis, the daily examination of the self to look inward, identify the patterns that weaken you, and replace them with reason. You delete the old code, the idea that you are unworthy, the story that says you're too late, too limited, too small. You uninstall it completely, and in its place you upload truth that you are the creator of your reality. That wealth is not an accident waiting outside your door, but a reflection of the order within. There's a merchant's proverb that says the poor man sees price, the wise man sees value. The Stoic would add, and the disciplined man creates both, because value is born from perception. When you believe in your capacity to build, to adapt, to endure, your surroundings begin, but what you attract. At this stage, understand this clearly. The world does not give you what you wish for. It mirrors what you believe you deserve. Raise your standard and the reflection changes. Stop waiting for proof of your worth. Act as if it were already settled because it is. The day you decide that mediocrity no longer fits you is the day everything else begins to rise to meet you. Now imagine looking into a mirror that doesn't show your face but your beliefs. The reflection is not skin or bone. It's the story you tell yourself about who you are. Because no one can rise higher than their own self-image, you cannot outperform the identity you've accepted. If you see yourself as a struggler, as a survivor, as someone the world overlooks, then even when wealth finds you, it will slip away. But if you see yourself as a builder, as someone capable of creating, serving, and leading, then wealth will cling to you like gravity because it knows where it belongs. In the hands of one who respects it, this is not arrogance, it's alignment. You're not saying I deserve wealth because I'm special. You're saying I will train my mind to become the kind of person who creates it. There's a difference. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus taught, you become what you give your attention to. If you feed your mind weakness, you'll live in fear. But if you feed it discipline, courage, and reason, you'll live with strength. You have something to offer, a thought, a craft, a way of seeing the world that only you possess. And the world is starving for people who bring light, not noise. That is why you must build wealth, not for comfort, not for vanity, but to serve, to create space for others to rise. Because wealth at its highest level is not accumulation, it's contribution. It's your ability to turn your potential into something that endures beyond you. Money is not evil. It's neutral. It's a mirror. It amplifies what already lives inside you. If you are generous, wealth expands your reach. If you are disciplined, it magnifies your impact. But if you're lost, it only accelerates the fall. That is why your first fortune must be built in your mind, not your wallet. The Stoic trains his thoughts before he touches the world because he knows without mastery of self, everything gained will eventually collapse. Think of wealth as soldiers marching under your command. If your mind is chaotic, they scatter. But when your mind is disciplined, they move with precision. Each coin, each opportunity, each moment advancing your vision. That is the quiet power of order. The mind becomes the general. The world becomes the field. At this stage, you must stop thinking like a consumer. The consumer waits, reacts, consumes. The creator decides, initiates, builds. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while writing about the empire within. He didn't ask, what can I take? He asked, what can I give? He understood that leadership begins with creation of thought, of value, of virtue. So train your mind to ask better questions. Not what can I buy, but what can I build? Not how much do I need to survive, but how far can I stretch what I already have? Not what's trending, but what's timeless, what truly matters. The Stoics aimed for permanence, not applause. The world chases the illusion of success, but the creator mindset generates it through skill, purpose, and relentless discipline. Remember this, wealth goes where it is welcomed, where it is respected, where it is expected. Speak and act as though you are already worthy of it, not out of pride, but out of preparation. Because money follows mastery, power follows clarity, and creation follows courage. In the end, you do not chase wealth. You become the kind of person it cannot ignore. You don't beg for opportunity, you embody it. You don't seek approval, you command respect through what you build. The Stoics taught that the good life begins not with possession but with perception. Change the way you see yourself and the world will begin to adjust its reflection. Entering this chapter, imagine the weight of a chisel in your hand. Before you stands a block of stone, cold, silent, unformed. Most will stare at it and walk away. But the builder sees something inside it waiting to be freed. That's what separates the dreamer from the doer. That's what separates the poor in spirit from those who create wealth that endures. Think of Andrew Carnegie. He never asked, what can I earn? He asked, what can I build that brings value to millions? That question changed history because wealth doesn't chase noise, it follows solutions. The Stoics understood this. Seneca wrote, It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Most people waste their energy avoiding difficulty. The few who rise see every challenge as a call to grow stronger, to expand their capacity. Wealth is not a reward for comfort. It's a responsibility given only to those who can hold its weight without collapsing under the illusion of ease. You want to be rich, then stop asking for rest. Start asking for strength. The Stoic doesn't pray for lighter burdens. He prays for broader shoulders. This is where the path narrows, because real wealth isn't exciting. It's repetitive. It's built in the quiet through structure, through habit, through the same small, unglamorous acts performed with precision. Reading when others scroll, investing when others spend, acting when others complain. Those who seek the thrill of motivation without the discipline of transformation will never hold lasting power. Fall in love with mastery, the mastery of thought, the mastery of emotion, the mastery of craft. When you master one thing deeply, you become irreplaceable, and the world always rewards what it cannot replace. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. The same applies here. Stop arguing with your circumstances. Build the system. Build the habit. Build yourself. Here's where most people break. They want the harvest without the season of planting. They want the glory without the grind. They want the prize without the patience. But wealth moves toward those who can delay gratification, who can endure boredom, who can do the right thing even when no one is watching. Discipline is not punishment, it's preparation. Each time you choose structure over impulse, each time you hold your focus while others scatter, you are tuning your life to the frequency of abundance. And let's be clear, this is not about deprivation. It's about creation. A disciplined mind no longer craves validation because it carries certainty. It doesn't need to prove, it performs. It doesn't show off. It shows up. It doesn't seek permission. It moves with conviction. That's the difference between those who dabble and those who dominate. Your mind is either working for you or against you. There is no neutral ground, so you must train it like code being rewritten line by line. Feed it with thoughts of expansion, not excuses. Repeat until they become instinct. Visualize your goals until failure feels unnatural. Surround yourself with people who think bigger, who expect excellence, who are unafraid of success. Remove distractions like a surgeon removes disease cleanly, decisively without apology, because you are building an empire. And empires are not built by those who answer every call of distraction. They are built by those who guard their focus like gold. Your attention is your greatest asset. Protect it fiercely. At this stage, remember, emotional resilience is the final test. The storms will come. There will be droughts, detours, and days when nothing works. But that's when the Stoic mind proves its worth. Because the one who remains calm in the storm becomes the eye of it. The one who refuses to break becomes the foundation others build upon. Wealth is not for the restless. It's for the resolute. It belongs to those who keep building when no one's clapping. Those who endure until the world has no choice but to notice. At this stage, imagine a warrior standing before the edge of a battlefield. The sky is dark, the wind heavy, and every instinct tells him to wait for the perfect moment. But deep down he knows there is no such thing. The only real moment is the one he chooses to act. That is where power begins. Not in emotion, not in comfort, but in decision. You must learn to act independently of how you feel. Feelings are weather. They shift, they fade, they deceive. The Stoics taught this truth centuries ago. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." You cannot build freedom on the foundation of mood. The mind trained for wealth doesn't depend on motivation. It depends on principle. It moves with purpose, not impulse. It doesn't beg for certainty. It creates it through consistency. There will come days when you don't feel like showing up, when doubt claws at the edges of your confidence, when fatigue whispers that you've done enough. That's when the Stoic inside you must rise, because the promise you made to yourself is sacred, and you must keep it long after the feeling that made it has disappeared. Discipline is not about feeling strong. The same fire that burns your excuses is the fire that shapes your destiny. You cannot fear the flame if you wish to be forged by it. The weak see fire and retreat. The wise see it and walk forward because they understand that the furnace of pressure is also the birthplace of power. The wealthy think this way. They do not run from loss. They learn from it. They do not resist pain. They refine themselves through it. They understand that growth is not glamorous. It's gritty. But here's the turning point. None of this matters. Not the books you read, not the wisdom you collect, not the speeches that move you until you decide. There is an invisible line between I want and I will, and most people spend their lives on the wrong side of it. Desire is a spark. Decision is the fire. Without fire, nothing transforms. There comes a moment when you must stop testing the water and dive in. No guarantee, no map, just conviction. Marcus Aurelius faced wars, plagues, betrayal. Yet every morning he reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That reminder was his armor. He didn't wait for the world to make sense. He acted according to reason. He lived by decision, not reaction. So stop negotiating with your potential. Stop waiting for courage to appear. Jump, commit, build the bridge as you walk it, because the world doesn't reward those who wish. It rewards those who decide and then refuse to turn back. At this stage of your journey, understand one truth. Action is the cure for doubt. Motion is the antidote to fear. When you move with intention, hesitation dies. When you decide, the universe rearranges itself to meet you halfway. The Stoics called this alignment with nature, the moment your will merges with what is meant for you. So make the leap. Burn the hesitation. Step across that invisible line with both feet planted in conviction, because once you decide, everything begins to move. The storm becomes your teacher. The fire becomes your forge, and you become unstoppable. Advancing to this final chapter, picture a man standing alone in an empty workshop. The world doubts him. His resources are limited. The plans on his table are called impossible. Yet his eyes burn with certainty. That man was Henry Ford. When his engineers told him a V8 engine could never exist, he didn't flinch. He didn't pause to debate. He said, "Build it anyway." And when they failed again and again, he repeated, "Keep working. I don't care how long it takes." His mind was made up. His vision was law. And eventually reality bowed to the weight of his conviction. That's the nature of the universe. It doesn't respond to hesitation. It responds to boldness, to clarity, to unwavering faith expressed through relentless action. You don't command life by asking politely. You command it by showing proof of resolve. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." He meant that philosophy must live through movement. Thought without action is merely a wish. You do not need more time, more credentials, or more permission. You need conviction. The kind that cannot be faked. The kind that speaks louder than your circumstances. The kind that stays even when your results have not yet arrived. Wealth, freedom, greatness. They follow conviction, the way the tide follows the moon. When your will is steady, the world aligns to meet it. Train your mind to move without fear, to act when others wait, to persist when logic tells you to stop, because the world will test you. It will throw obstacles disguised as delays, opinions disguised as advice, and doubt disguised as reason. But the trained mind, the Stoic mind, does not flinch. It doesn't need the world to believe. It believes first. There will come a time when you must kill the version of yourself that hesitates, the one that overthinks, overexplains, and waits for permission. Bury that version and rise with new thoughts, new standards, new rules. The wealthy, the wise, the builders, they play by different laws. They don't ask, "Is it possible?" They ask, "How do I make it inevitable?" They don't seek guarantees because they are the guarantee. Your mind must operate from that same center of power. Expect success. Adapt when needed, pivot when required, but never retreat. Because discipline and faith, when joined together, form a force that reality cannot resist. That is how wealth is created. Not by chance, but by alignment. You feed your mind with vision, discipline it with action, stretch it with purpose, and guard it like treasure. No one can do this for you. No teacher, no mentor, no book can give you the decision only you can make. But once you make it, once you fully step into your power, everything begins to shift. Because wealth isn't a number or a possession, it's a state of being. It's how you walk into the room. It's how you think under pressure. It's how you respond to loss and how you carry victory. Wealth is not what you have. It's who you've become in the process of building it. When your thoughts, actions, and values align with abundance, the world reflects that alignment. Doors open. People appear. Opportunities emerge not out of magic but out of resonance. You become magnetic, a force too focused to be ignored. So stop chasing. Start becoming. Stand tall. Clear your mind. Lock in your vision. Move with purpose. Speak with power. Work as though your life depends on it, because it does. This is not a rehearsal. This is the rest of your life. You are one decision away from stepping into the rare air where effort turns to joy, purpose turns to profit, and life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. Train your mind and the rest will follow. Because once your mind is wealthy, the world has no choice but to catch up. Repetition is the sculptor of your destiny. You do not become what you imagine once, but what you return to again and again until it becomes your nature. Every time you visualize the life you desire, you are chiseling a new pattern into your mind. Each repetition carves away doubt, fear, and hesitation until what remains is the image of someone who no longer wishes but believes. Someone who no longer waits but acts. Your mind adapts to what it is fed with persistence. It reshapes your thoughts, your emotions, even your environment to match the image you hold within. That is not magic. That is how the human spirit evolves. When your vision becomes consistent, your behavior begins to follow. When your behavior aligns with your vision, results appear. What was once imagined becomes inevitable. So return to this message often. Let it echo through your mornings, your quiet moments, your late nights of work. The more you listen, the deeper it settles into your consciousness. The Stoics believe that greatness is built through steady repetition of what is true. When you train your mind daily, you begin to rise naturally above distraction and limitation. Remember, wealth does not begin with money. It begins with mastery. The mastery of focus, of thought, of inner dialogue. You cannot control every circumstance, but you can train your mind to respond with clarity, no matter what life presents. Every time you choose discipline over doubt, you move one step closer to the life you've been building in silence. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe so you can continue walking this path of strength and inner wealth. Every reflection you absorb here is a tool to sharpen your awareness and guide you closer to freedom. Comment below with, "I attract abundance," to affirm your commitment to this practice. Your journey doesn't end here. The next lesson will take you deeper into the art of mental alignment and how to live from the identity of the person you are becoming. Keep feeding your mind the thoughts that empower you. Keep showing up with purpose even when it feels quiet and unseen, because repetition done with faith and patience will one day turn your vision into reality. Stay focused, stay grounded, and keep training your mind. The world is already preparing to meet the person you are becoming. Stay blessed and thanks for watching.